In a blink of an eye, we return. We've got Shaxy versus Glory coming up next. We're going to move swiftly on to match number 2 of the day. Yeah, we had Dawn take a pretty quick win, 2-0 with the Mage. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Mage doing what Mage does best. But for now, we are going to go on to this Control Warrior, which you were talking about a little bit earlier. And it's going to be going up against Rogue, and the Rogue lists have been flying around thick and fast, I feel, over the past few weeks, especially post-nerf. And I feel like they're not really stopping anytime soon. There's so much debate and discussion over what you're supposed to even play. And it's not because the class is bad. I think it's because the class is so good at the moment that there's too many good cards to try and include in the deck and too many different styles. So let's take a look at what Glory has chosen to bring to the table this week in Grandmasters.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff floating around. I was a big fan of Patra's deck that she brought last week with a slightly more aggressive game plan, the Deadly Poisons, the Captain Greenskin in there, as opposed to this from Glory, which is pretty much the most bog-standard version this is a slightly different version without the Vendetta package. Sorry, this is a slightly more aggressive build of Rogue, as we can see. I was fooled by
it's the midway between the midway.
Exactly. yeah. It's a list that I haven't tested all too much myself. I'm not entirely sure how it will fare against Warrior, because it's a very interesting dynamic that you have between the Burgle package and the more aggressive version, because you can take it a lot slower, obviously, with the Burgle package and get more value, but I'm not even certain that's the best way to win. I don't even know if you can outvalue the Warrior, so maybe just going aggressive with Waggle Picks, Leroys, and Myras is the way to go.
Yeah, and as soon as Spirit the Shark's in the deck, you can do weird things, right? You can go not infinite with lackeys, but it feels like it a lot of the time and get some insane value out of the game. And there is the Togwaggle in there as well. So Rogue, I feel, is the deck of many paths right now, and working out which way to turn at the end of throughout each game is, I think, where the skill level lies with this deck in particular. And Shaxy going to be on the Control Warrior, and I feel like this is going to be much more of a straightforward matchup than Bomb Warrior. I think there's a lot of different styles of Bomb Warrior and different approaches to different matchups and even the same matchup, but Control Warrior is a little bit more straightforward here. Yeah,
it's a lot more on the control game plan. It's called Control Warrior for a reason. It runs all these insane removal cards. Even the minions in the deck, like Militia Commander and Big Game Hunter and even Omega Devastator, they pretty much feel like removal cards for the vast majority of the time. I think against Glory's build of the deck, this will work in Shaxy's favor, because if Glory with his Rogue does go for the more aggressive game plan, as I was talking about, with the Waggle Picks, with the Leroy Jenkins and the Eviscerates as well, I think that he has great counterplay to that, primarily with Weapons Project.
Right.
I think given that we've seen that largely phased out of Bomb Warrior, has given Rogue a very, very good out of just playing aggressive and going with the Waggle Pick lethal. I don't believe that to be a consistent game plan for Glory up against Shaxy.
Yeah, one thing on Glory's side, I guess, is a winning point, at least for me, is that Shaxy can't do what Bomb Warriors often are available to do, is actually curve out on tempo out versus an opponent that wants to do that to them. It's weird, like Bomb Warrior can become a beatdown even versus Rogue a lot of the time.
I don't even think it can. I think it should. I think that's the way you play
that's
the
what I mean.
matchup.
I think you play it, being able to just curve out and put pressure on the Rogue, because Rogue doesn't really deal with the pressure that well. It wants to be ahead because it's such a tempo-focused class and deck. But at least Glory will know he can't get beat down, so he has a much more opaque game plan. You know, he doesn't have to try and work out what Shaxy's going to do or maybe could do. Shaxy's going to try and kill all his minions and not die, and that's it.
However, it's not like this deck runs literally no minions at all to get on the board. With Town Crier, even just with like Town Crier, Snip Snap, Devastator, like that's a good curve that he has available to him. We could see Shaxy just curving out relatively well and then finding Glory struggling to keep up. As it currently stands, it looks like Glory will not be in that situation, given that he is one cheap spell away from getting like a 10-10 Edwin on turn 2.
Yeah, and do you think you actually do it against Control Warrior?
Yes.
Do you think just every time?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a fan. If I'm sat with Glory's hand against anyone, I'm doing the Van Cleave, because you just rely on the odds just not being there that it can be dealt with. But especially versus Control Warrior, there's not the minions to make up the difference a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, I think that against Warrior, your primary win condition against Rogue is Edwin. Whenever you can go for that, it's your best shot of taking the win. And for Shaxy, it's kind of an interesting mission he's got in the deck with no silence at all. We've seen silence put into Bomb Warrior, let alone Control Warrior. But in his primary deck, running no copies of Iron Beak Owl or Spellbreaker, he would definitely struggle to deal with so large of an Edwin.
Thing He's just going to go for it. I saw that prep covered, and if prep is +2/+2 to your Van Cleef, you play that card. And the funny thing is, yes, there's BGH in the deck, but one, it has to be drawn, and two, because Glory does this with the coin, and you often do a big Van Cleef with a coin, that's just the way it works most of the time, it's just way too quick. Okay, BGH hit on 5, well, you're probably dead. It just doesn't matter anymore, and this is what I was meaning, where in Bomb Warrior, there's at least, say, Clockwork Goblin into Militia Commander that you can do sometimes to be able to just make up the damage difference and be able to kill off the Van Cleef. But now, like, yeah, okay, Shaxy has to shield block. I don't really know what he's waiting for, to be honest, but he's going to shield block, see what he gets, because I don't think armor up is enough unless he's relying on exactly armor up and then later shield block armor up into shield slam, but that is a big ask without a shield slam even in sight.
That's what I was looking at, is if next turn, if he was able to kill the Edwin with shield slam into shield block into shield slam, I think he would save that out. He obviously does not have that out, so he just goes for it to give him the highest chance of finding some way to deal with this Edwin. As he is now, next turn, a shield slam away from being able to clear this Edwin. With Weapons Project Hero Power Shield Slam, he could do it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the added flexibilities of Weapon Project. Not only breaking weapons, not only being able to clear up minions with the weapon, but gaining armor on demand for a relatively cheap cost as well.
It's a big old deal. As Shaxy only really left with the choice, I believe, Devastator or Militia Commander. It's not as easy as it thinks, because as it seems, because my first instinct was just to slam the Commander, take 3 damage off the board, which I think is what he's going to go for. But he's wondering, do I ever have to save the Militia Commander to go with the Devastator next turn to take out the Edwin? Which is a very real concern, because the Devastator has a pretty decent chance of living. So maybe I do just prefer that.
And if it doesn't live, it's probably at the 3/3 anyway.
Yeah.
Which does the job of the Militia Commander, would have done it regardless.
Maybe that's just better.
And maybe that with the Dynomatic the turn after.
Wow, he takes an alternate line of play.
So with this, he's just going to take the damage, right? He's just going to he's going to Super Collider and just say, you know what? I will take all of this damage and then try and stabilize. And he does have good stabilization tools. He has Dynomatic and the Weapons Project, which, into Dr. Boom as well a little bit later. There is the health regen there, but it's whether it's good enough.
Yeah.
And a Life Drinker plus a Waggle Pick. But that's just a lot of damage there and then. Ooh.
Excellent positioning as well from Shaxy, it's worth saying. Now, from Glory. Shaxy now has to take either a 50-50 or tank 5 extra damage in order to clear off the board with a Super Collider.
Just press Brawl.
It's a real consideration at this point.
I think he has to now. I think the Brawl feels more likely to win him the game now, especially with Glory's previous turn, than the Collider does. And I don't mean more likely to kill the Van Cleef, I just mean more likely to win him the game, because those numbers are obviously different.
I think he might actually... Oh, wow. I think that was super close, because setting up the Super Collider is valuable. But either way, he's going off with the Brawl, gets the result he wanted. Either of the 3/3s there was perfectly reasonable.
My worry is, if you Collider in and it hits the other 3/3, you lose.
Right, but he's taking a risk either way, right? Like, I think, he has to take a big risk, given how far behind he is in this game.
Right, but isn't Brawl the bigger risk for the bigger payout?
Do you mean the lower risk? Like, it's less risky because you have a 2 out of 3 rather than a 50/50.
Oh, sure, yeah. But I think the Brawl payout's more.
I think there's higher upside, right? Because you have a Super Collider in play, which can be used to clear off the board. Like
do you not foresee wanting to Weapons Project very soon?
Yeah. That's where you bring the discussion to the next step, which I think is very possible. He has to go for the Weapons Project on the next turn, or Glory is able to just play around the Super Collider for the next couple of turns.
True.
I think it's very interesting.
It wasn't straightforward. I'll put that one out there straight away. There was not a clear-cut plan. And Dynomatic still going to get some work done, even though there's a mech on the board. He can use it to clear off the SI, guaranteed.
Yeah, he would not be dead if he went for the Dynomatic. He'd be very close, but he would still be alive. But at the same time, for Shaxy, he's not that far off stabilizing. I think if Glory gets some bad draws and Shaxy is able to clear off what he currently has, Dr. Boom could seal this one.
There's Dynomatic, and then there's potentially even a funny play the following turn of Weapons Project Super Collider. you gain the armor and then just use the super glider to clear off minions, if there's relevant minions there to clear, of course. So I think he has to just play the Dino, get a minion on the board that Glory has to at least consider. Oh, he's going to go this way. Okay.
I think he's just too afraid of dying, right? Does this keep him alive against Leroy? He's up at 15 health. 5-7. Yes, I think just about keeps him alive against exactly Leroy.
Let's see if the payoff's worth it, though.
Because there's been a card in Glory's hand right from the start of the game in the Evil Miscreant, right? And I think with this play, Shaxy is playing around the Leroy,
right,
which is valid because if he's able to stabilize these next couple turns, I'd say he's in with a very reasonable shot of being able to take the game.
Oh, discovering a spell can change the damage output very quickly. Maybe he's working out whether he wants to just Shadow Step the Miscreant.
Definitely something he's considering.
Ooh, I love a good head crack.
These all actually have some merit, I think. I believe Daring Escape is too slow.
Cold Blood's instant value, right? You could just play this turn.
I'm definitely looking at Cold Blood the most. But I would hear the reasoning for any of them. But yeah, I think going into the Dr. Boom turn, you want to put on the most amount of pressure as possible, and this does that the most effectively. Puts the most attack on board, and means that Shaxy has to find an answer, or he's just going to be tanking way too much damage.
Yeah, and even if it's just Boom, then he goes up to 14.
That's very
scary. But
scary.
then there's 10 already. Like, Glory only needs 4 to do anything and to win the game.
It's even one off Big Game Hunter range, because Big Game Hunter into Warpath was actually not looking that bad.
Yeah.
So, triple Warpath doesn't clear off the 1/1s. It wouldn't even take that much damage.
And he can't just take 6.
Yeah. It's another tough position. Super Collider doesn't have any good targets.
Boom and hope, Mr. Derek. Boom and hope. I don't see anything else.
Like, Dynamatic clears off 2 damage from the board, but
there's 6.
Yeah.
And the weapon that does 2.
He can fit in the hero power then as well, but yeah, I agree.
But then he's 1 off lethal, and at least if he booms, he's, what, 4 off lethal?
Yes,
it's just a better number,
no,
right?
I agree this is the way to go. It does not feel all too good for Shaxy, and I think this is a great play from Glory, again, realizing that Shaxy's main way back into this game was Dr. Boom Mad Genius, and therefore he makes it as difficult as possible to
and also making the threat the Snip Snap. Such a big deal.
True.
Because Dynamatic has no game versus that minion whatsoever.
And I think
that looks like the damage to me.
Just enough to close this out with Glory's huge Edwin right at the start of the game, getting him into a pretty good position. And then his follow-up as well. I think it was a very good play around what Shaxy had access to. The positioning against Super Collider was very, very strong. The play, as you said, with the Snip Snap at the end, played around Big Game Hunter, played around Dynamatic, played around Warpath. There was very little that Shaxy could have done there, even though he had so many of the strongest tools against Rogue in the matchup.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've all played against a big Van Cleef early on, right? Yes, it is very powerful, very hard to deal with, and a ton of damage. But yes, Glory got the Van Cleef early, but the rest of the play was solid, wasn't it? I think that's the trick. You can get an early Van Cleef and just throw it away and lose very, very easily. So I think Glory's just very solid continual play was good, and then did just finish up that match.
And then I think the one really big decision point from Shaxy that I would really like to look at is the Militia Commander turn, where he rushed it into the Edwin, because it wasn't that much that was played by Glory to play around that, right? It was just Life Drinker put in the right position, and Super Collider shut out. It's a 50-50 at best at that point. So I do wonder if looking at the lines instead of playing out the Devastator on turn 4, you tank the damage on that turn, which he does anyway. He takes the same amount of damage, and then follow up on the following turn with either Dynamatic or Militia Commander. I think maybe gave him a slightly better shot of playing around what Glory had to offer. But again, super, super difficult decision, so I can't fault Shaxy for his play
it really is. And turning into a difficult match as well. Shaxy needs to stay alive and needs to win the next one, whereas Glory is only 1 game away from evening it up in terms of wins and going to 8, the same as Shaxy. So big deal. Top of the table game here between Glory and Shaxy. The players just got set up for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with some more Hearthstone.
Each teammate I'm calling has stories. This tale's about riches and glories. Deep down in the earth, a king dreams of rebirth and refilling his gold inventories. Such a shame to have lost all that treasure. Join up, be a kobold of leisure. The cards now be calling. Someone new, no more stalling. And we next will be taking her measure. Each teammate I'm calling has stories. This tale's about riches and glories. Deep down in the earth, a king dreams of rebirth and refilling his gold inventories. Such a shame to have lost all that treasure. Join up, be a kobold of leisure. The cards now be calling. Someone new, no more stalling. And we next will be taking her measure.
We are back and going to continue the match between Shaxy and Glory. I'm not going to lie to anyone, Derek's a little bit freaked out because both players are on the primary deck.
Yeah, this is definitely not what I was expecting. We've had a very clear trend in Grandmasters where the secondary and tertiary deck have not just been substituting in good cards, it's been specifically to counter one deck.
Yes.
You have your anti-mage, your anti-warrior, and your anti-rogue. It's generally the way that players have been playing it. And here we have Glory with a pretty clear anti-warrior side deck, slotting in 2 Coppertail Imposters, 2 Wargears, and a Cairn Bloodhoof. And he's not switching to it. And he's up against a Control Warrior, not even a Bomb Warrior, so it's not even like he has to be afraid of losing out on tempo too much. He's just sticking with his primary Rogue deck. And I think the reason why he's sticking with his primary might be because Shaxy has a secondary deck with 2 Ironbeak Owls, Spellbreaker, and EMP Operative, which he also has not switched to, but Glory thought he might switch to, and so stuck on his primary because he went like 2 levels too deep. And Shaxy maybe Shaxy predicted his opponent better because he thought that Glory wouldn't switch, so he didn't switch. Or maybe Shaxy didn't think about any of this and just stuck with his primary deck.
Yeah, I think the loser, I'll call it, of this weird mind game that's gone on is Glory.
I agree.
Because, one, he's brought a deck. I'll just quickly outline the cards. 2 Coppertail Imposters, which are 4/4 stealth mechs on 4 mana. 2 Wargears, you know what they do. And a Cairn Bloodhoof, which means like, if you bring in these cards, it's for Warrior,
Yes,
right? Look at that
absolutely.
snip snap. That's a pretty cool card when you include more mechs in the deck, right?
It is.
If the payoff, or the punish, is Shaxy bringing a deck that doesn't have Dynamatics in and doesn't have 2 Super Gliders and a BGH, fine. It runs 2 Owls, a Spellbreaker, and 2 EMP, 2 5-mana 3/3s.
Yeah.
Are you that upset if you're a rogue? Your opponent, yes, is playing cards that, in air quotes, will counter your mechs, but they don't counter your deck, right? Like, I feel like Warrior playing those is just fine.
Yeah. As the old expression goes, don't hate the mech, hate the deck.
Yes, that very old
Son.
expression.
Yeah.
With some extra spice on the end of it.
A little bit of extra mustard. As Glory here is met with not the most devastating punish, given that obviously the 2/1/1s are bots, but in these early exchanges, which we've been discussing, all the intricacies of the matchup, it feels like it's gone pretty firmly in favor of Shaxy compared to last game.
Yeah, 100%. There is a Van Cleef and there's some cheap spells to use.
Yeah, it could get pretty beefy.
The Glory could go pretty big, but it's not turn 3 big, which is the huge thing, is that Shaxy is just open to more removal available to him. We can see right away, if Glory goes for this big Van Cleef, then Shaxy will just BGH it and kind of laugh a little bit.
That's smart. Yeah, because I have to say, with the Myras in hand, I was looking at just going all in. Because you want to dump the cards, then you redraw afterwards. BGH is the reason he's making this play, and I think it's very smart.
Welcome to 2015 Hearthstone, when you have to play around BGH.
Right, but interestingly enough, in Specialist, you're not told if your opponent has switched decks. So Glory might be under the impression, if he thought that Shaxy was going to switch, that he's only playing 1 BGH instead of 2.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait, he saw the Dynamatic. He saw the Dynamatic, which 2 were taken out, so he knows for certain that he's on the primary. So good play by Glory, good play.
This whole game's just wonky, it's only like turn 5. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I can't get past, like, okay, EMP Operatives versus Dynamatics. Dynamatic is the better card overall.
Yes, by miles.
And it's not as if putting a few mechs in your rogue deck makes it a mech deck, right? You have tons of other minions that Dynamatic is good against. Look at it just destroy the Spirit of the Shark, right? So, I don't know. I'm still not with Glory on this, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, the obvious unsaid thing is that his secondary deck is not for Rogue. It's for Mech Hunter and Mech Paladin, very clearly, because you have the Silence, you have the Mech Disruption, and Dynamatic does not kill mechs, so it makes a lot of sense to get rid of them there. But I don't know. I agree. I agree overall that Glory is the player who lost out in this mind games.
Let's see what happens, though. He does have a couple of these lackeys, and now weird decision points when you have Myras in hand. You have to reassess everything about your hand, right? Because naturally, a Shadow Step on a miscreant is a very good play as Rogue.
It is.
But the more you do things like that with this hand, the less powerful or the more delayed Myra's Unstable Element becomes.
Yeah.
So this is one of the tricky moments where Glory has to choose what he wants to do here. He is going to go for the Shadow Step. I wonder if he's going to replay. Okay. I wonder whether he wanted to wait post Myra's to have a 1-mana miscreant after the fact. I don't know. It gets really weird, right?
It does.
Because this feels slow.
I don't know. I mean, as opposed to what? As opposed to playing Myras on this turn? Is that the other thing you were looking at?
Potentially.
Because I think the main thing he's missing out on here isn't tempo, because, I mean, he's got a very big board. I just think this was a relatively high tempo play. I think the thing he's missing out on is value later on, because by going for Shadow Step, it means he's not Shadow Stepping High Sparrow and Togwaggle. He's played out all his lackeys here, so he would have to get another lackey generating card in addition to the Togwaggle before he can play that.
This is why I thought he might have considered keeping the miscreant post Shadow Step and say,
right,
well, after Myra's, I have lackey generation and maybe more. After, I don't know. I think it's just super difficult because with Shaxy being having a pretty good control of this game so far, I wonder if doing this and then pressing Myra's is going to be enough. Is it just too late? And maybe one turn doesn't matter in the long run, but maybe it does.
I think I agree with you. I think it's actually less the extra turn that you would get by playing Myra's earlier. It's just that Myra's of today, as opposed to Myra's of days gone by.
Ye old Myra.
Exactly, ye oldie Myra's. It's so much weaker. It's because it's not even just the Falderay Striders that you're missing out on now for the Spider generation. It's the Chef Nomis. You're not playing Chef Nomi anymore, which a lot of the rogue decks used to play. There's not that much value in the deck to even look for.
He's got Tog.
And he's got the Cable Rat and the Spirit of the Shark.
Well, I was going to say, this is what I was going to add on to Ymira's comment as well, is that it's also much more dependent on drawing certain XYZ cards, right? If you draw Tog, you need a Lackey generator. If you don't, then Tog's just a 5/5. Like that just sucks. If you draw Lackey generator, it's great, but without more value. There we go. Sorry if we broke off there. But without more value, it's just a bit more of a problem, right? Because great, you've got a Lackey. Like one Lackey often doesn't do much without, say, a Shark to generate more or something like that.
And that's the main thing is, so after having established that Myras may not be good enough to win him the game, especially because he doesn't have the Burgle package and all the generation that Henchclan Burglar affords him, the step should then be, how does he counteract that? How does he gain the value or the damage to win the matchup, which I think could have been argued to hold on to one of the lackeys for a quicker activation with High Sparrow and Togwaggle, because now he has to go Spirit of the Shark into Evil Cable Rat for a turn. Then next turn, he can go for High Sparrow and Togwaggle. Then next turn, he can play out the Treasure, or I guess he could do it on the same turn. With
I wonder if he's going to wait actually and go the Rat into then the Shark High Sparrow in the same turn.
Maybe.
To get double high.
Maybe.
It's tough because now, this is the fun of Myra's, is that Glory just has a puzzle that he needs to unlock.
Right.
What does he do to win the game? And Clockwork Goblin looks nice as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
Whoa! He just missed out on a reasonable chunk of damage and a minion to put pressure on.
Right, I mean, that puts the clock on Glory, right? That's just a 3-mana, 3/3, deal 5 damage at that point.
I wonder if Shaxy is just thinking, well, the fatigue's there. If I just don't die, I win in a roundabout way.
I think from Glory, though, this is really good recognition, because I think he ran through the same thing in his head that we did of, okay, do I go Cable Rat this turn, then Shark, Togwaggle, then prep the spell next turn, because he wouldn't even have the mana to do all of that? It gets way too slow. I think damage...
Or should I just kill him?
Exactly. Damage is the way you go here, because it means he can go Life Drinker this turn with the Shark. If the Shark survives, which has a pretty good chance of, he can go for Life Drinker again with Leroy next turn.
And also bear in mind that we focused a lot on lackeys and the Tog and the Shark. There's also 2 Life Drinkers, a Leroy and a Wagglepick, which adds up to a lot of damage. Now Shaxy. Let's see what happens here, because he has a few options. Unfortunately for him, he does not have the Dr. Boom hero, which means the Saturnian Rover is not going to be rushed anytime soon. Ooh, is it Eternium, and then double Warpath?
That's pretty sick, actually, yeah.
Because you lose your minions, but do you care? Oh, he's just going to armor up.
Or would it been able to go triple Warpath, or was it just double? Because if it's just double, that doesn't really cut it, right? Because he'd want to actually kill off the opposing minions. Like, if he couldn't kill off the Shark, I think I like going for this.
I wondered whether he just wanted extreme levels of armor.
I mean, he can do that next turn, right? Because Glory is not going to kill off these Eternium Rovers if he has any chance at winning.
And he's almost certainly not dead, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is just a safety play from Shaxy.
I think this is just a very nice way.
To be honest, I didn't actually realize he'd get up to that much armor this turn. So
yeah, I think the only other real consideration was whether he goes for Super Glider to kill off the Spirit of the Shark. But I think, given the way that Glory has played, he should be more afraid of taking damage than he should of giving his opponent value.
Gonna go for that Togwaggle now, and a note as well, there is no Togwaggle scheme available, which means there's no shuffling into the deck.
So it's a very easy double crown here, with a prep as well. We can see it come down right now. Can he get the Leroy Jenkins in order to get the extra damage to push for lethal right now? No, he can't, but he can get Whizbang the Wonderful. I mean, this is just a hugely threatening board that Glory has thrown down, to which Shaxy needs to find an answer. Oh, hey, how does Warpath sound?
You can even just push all damage to face.
Yes.
And just say, you know what? I'll have an empty board, you have an empty board. Your fatigue is bad and my armor is good.
Looks like he wants to go for that Acolyte first.
Do you think he just wants to draw into Boom?
Yeah, I mean, it's just he wants to keep the card draw rolling, right? I mean, because he can go for trait the Snip Snap, 2 Warpaths, double trade, and then the final Warpath. Oh yeah, this is great. This just clears the board.
Yeah, and as long as he Warpaths enough, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 or 3.
This is fantastic,
point, right?
Yeah. I mean, the trade-off he's getting here is he's sacrificing damage to face for card draw, which I think is a good trade-off to make.
Yeah, for me, as long as he gains the armor and doesn't die, he wins.
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So now he's just saying, well, I'm going to win with less of with more of my deck in my hand.
I mean, he's maybe overdrawing cards here. I think he's okay.
He's got enough.
He's got
it's
the Warpath, which disappears.
Oh, even the Ziliax now. Well,
Yep, which means it has to be pretty much a miracle off of this Zarog's Crown for there to be any chance for Glory to take this game, given that Shaxy is above starting health total at this point.
I don't think this deck is called Miracle Rogue anymore.
Test Greymane, even if he could bounce it, or even the Togwaggle if he could bounce it, I don't think we'll ever get there.
Like just a lack of a scheme, right?
He could go Tog, Waggle, Pick Face, Dagger to get one back to the hand to go for the next turn. None of that's going to be getting in there because it's all way too slow. And Shaxy, after locking out the game that was looking pretty good for him, I think just shows that the Rogue deck, when you do take out the Virgil package, nowadays is so light on value, which I think is why a lot of the players are going for that game plan, because they can still get the consistent damage with the Waggle Picks and the Life Drinkers, but then with the Hench Clan Burglars thrown in there as well, they have that little bit of extra juice in order to extend into the late game versus Warriors. Yeah,
and I think for me as well, it's that looked more like what you would expect it to go, you know, how the game would go. Shaxy just cleans up anything early that comes down and then never really lets the Rogue player deal with anything after that. And now the weird part happens, and it's something we've not really seen, at least in APAC. I can't talk very deeply about the other regions because my memory's bad, but they could still change deck, right? We're going on to game number 3. Both players still have the ability to change if they want, but after the mind games of game 2, what do you even do? I think Glory should just change. I really think he should.
If I had to predict what would happen, I would say Shaxy will stick and Glory will switch. Because I think Shaxy's deck as it stands, no matter which deck Glory goes for, he will still be in a good spot. I think Glory would be in a better position if he switched over to the mech package stuff. We just got confirmation though, he's sticking primary. He does not want to go over to that anti-warrior mech stuff. I guess he thinks he would lose out on tempo too much by losing the backstabs or the life drinkers, or the saps, sorry. Or he thinks that Shaxy will realize what he could do and switch over to his secondary, which I don't think he would do even if he knew that Glory was switching over. I've got to be honest, I would be really, really interested to hear Glory's game plan, because as it currently stands, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like you miss out on tempo with these saps and one backstab minus. The life drinkers go away as well, but you lose tempo to gain tempo to a certain extent, because yes, you're losing a bit of removal, but you gain more minions on curve, which to me is just better than anything else, even to the extent that Coppertail Imposter, yes, is a mech, but it's a 4-drop with stealth, which means on curve does not die to EMP operative, which means at worst, if you war gear it, or if you have war gear next to it, well, EMP can only kill one of them, and then you can just snowball from there. So it really does surprise me that you would even submit this and not play it, even if your opponent's playing EMPs, because you're not playing a full mech deck, right? You have minions that EMP does nothing to whatsoever. Interesting.
It's very interesting, and I think this speaks to a larger bit of theory about Hearthstone in general in Grandmasters, which relates specifically to Specialist. It's a relatively new format, so players are still figuring it out, which is how to sideboard against Warrior. In pretty much every deck, we've seen players really struggle with how to do that, because I think the reputation that Warrior has garnered, specifically Bomb Warrior more so than Control Warrior, is of a control deck, which is not true. It can function very efficiently as an aggro deck or a mid-range deck with all the minions it can play on curve, which is why at the start of Grandmasters we saw players including cards like Hexlord Malakras in their mage decks in order to gain value against the Warrior, which sucked. It was way too slow. You were just dying. It did suck, and players admitted that as soon as they put it in their mage decks, that it was not what they wanted to do at all. And then, you know, there have been different theories with Rogue as well. Do you go for this mech package, which Glory has put in and not gone for when against the Warrior? Do you go for Togwaggle's scheme? Do you go for 2 Togwaggle schemes? There's so much to consider.
And funnily enough, those lines run parallel to how Warriors built, because a lot of people were running more removal for the mage deck. And then some Warriors were saying, oh, actually, I'll just kill them quicker so they can't do stuff.
Corcoran Elites.
Yeah, go. And I personally prefer that style of play overall.
Me too.
But yeah, let's go into this decided game now. These two players top of their division, and this one's going to help out one of these greatly to just further cement that spot in the top 3 there. But Shaxy getting off this tempo start, and suddenly, when a control warrior does this, you start to wonder how any deck can win the game.
You do, but then in response they play an Edwin for, I don't even know how big this is going to be at this point, to which the warrior says, how do I ever beat that?
Well, it's got to be bigger than 8-8.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I don't think
That's the problem, right? With
next turn.
With minions on the board, there's so much less damage the warrior has to get.
So I guess this turn Glory can go prep into Miscreant, and then he can get a lackey to which he could play the lackey, step it, play the lackey, step it, coin other lackey Edwin. Like, he can play so much stuff there and basically say, if you don't have the big game hunter, you're miles behind, which I think is a reasonable play.
I wonder whether he has to coin Miscreant instead and play one of the lackeys this turn, just not to fall behind. I don't... It's tough.
It's close. It's close because obviously he doesn't have any other spells to play with the preparation for more than 0 mana in his hand. But he has the Togwaggle, and going for prep wand with Togwaggle is pretty insane.
It's really close, isn't it?
Is he not going for any of that?
Dagger pass.
Last minute, coming to the conclusion that he can just take this a little bit slower, and he's going to be met with the miserable news of Omega Devastator. You absolutely play this out from Shaxy. He's got board, and he needs to push that to the maximum because he's floated 1 mana so far this game. He's literally just curving out beautifully.
And this is a play that we've seen way more now, excuse me, but at the start of GM, as I'm choking, the Omega Devastator was often kept by players way too much. Yeah. And you see the power. Like, what does Glory even do?
Yes.
This and imagine if the Snip Snap back then was just a goblin, right?
Whatever.
3/3 into 4/5.
Any card
like,
he plays
what does your
there.
opponent actually do apart from try to not die?
Right.
And if your opponent's in that position, it's fantastic. But now we see this as much more of a common play. If you've got it on curve, play it on curve because you stay ahead, and then your removal only gets stronger because you're not removing to survive anymore. You're using removal to actually push more damage and win the game.
And I've got to be honest here, I think from Glory his play is a little bit too slow. Obviously when he made the play last turn of not going prep into the Evil Miscreant, he did not know that he would be met with a Devastator on curve. But he is just being tempoed out of this game so hard, and I'm not even sure if a Spirit of the Shark on 4 is going to be enough to wrestle this back.
The worry as well is, but with this slow turn, hopefully you'll understand what I'm trying to say, but would a Militia Commander on curve been much worse?
Yeah.
You know, it's a much lesser minion, but it still would have caused the same issue, right?
Glory here with the blunder as well of not playing prep first. I don't know, like, or just missing out on a lackey. Like, I think prep first was probably the way to go for that because he would probably rather have another lackey just for an extra chance of getting cold.
Also, at worst, it procs a Van Cleef more.
Right.
You probably, with the double proc, going to get an Ethereal.
Yes.
Like, it's a pretty good chance. Like,
there is it down anyway here. Wants to get the double proc
at least
on
he
the...
doesn't double down on the mistake, right? At least he plays it.
But what does he even do here? Because he can't go lackey step, like he can't play lackey and Edwin on the same turn, so he has to just forego the Edwin on this turn. Which is, I mean, it's just pretty miserable as it currently stands.
Also away from Vanish now, in terms of mana, even with the prep.
Yeah.
And yeah, Glory just...
Overdrawing card.
It's just falling apart.
This was a mess from Glory. This was an absolute mess.
And now I think, honestly, the game can still continue, but all Shaxy has to do is not do anything very, very silly, and he'll be fine. How much damage does he even have now?
Right, I mean, that's what I was looking at.
11? Just with the Ziliax attaching. He could push if he wanted to. Dynomatic, great pickup as well.
Yeah, that's pretty juicy. If he can trade into the 5/4 Divine Shield, he then has only a 1/2 Acolyte as the only non-mech minion on his side of the board.
There is 11 health still on board, though. It's not worth it, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Unless he wants to just clean trade the whole thing.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, okay. This is what he would want to accomplish with the Dynomatic anyway. And yeah, Shaxy, instead of maybe going aggressive, he's just saying, I'm just not going to lose this game. Like, I'll just stay defensive, remove minions where I can, and just not let Glory weasel his way out of this game, because Shaxy knows now, because the Ethereal was played late, and the prep got played, that Glory did not have an enjoyable turn last turn, which means that Shaxy just has to play safe, play cool, and he'll be fine.
So, in a way for Glory to try and wrestle this game back, how does he do that most effectively? Togwaggle is worth considering on this turn.
Use the prep.
Yeah, he did use the prep for no effect. I mean, other than clearing hand space, which is pretty valid. But I mean, we could see Togwaggle step the Witchy Lackey and then upgrade the Togwaggle to a 7-drop is pretty worth considering. But I guess like even that might just be too slow at this point. Is Ziliax better though? Like he could go Ziliax, trade, step the Witchy Lackey again and upgrade to a 6-drop. I think using the step on this turn on the Witchy Lackey is a good use of tempo.
He could also step one more time, depending on what that drop is, and replay the Witchy again. Depending on how bad or good the evolve is, of course. Just going to go for the wand. Overall, I would say just the best pick. He's just going to leave these minions up
passing and milling another card. Is double Shadow Step really that useful for him? Like, his hand is so full, he's going to need to get rid of cards anyway, right?
Is he thinking that he needs to wand into Leroy?
Maybe.
Because he can do the scheme thing. Oh wait, that's not scheme, is it? It's the bounce.
That's Daring Escape. Like, he's got so many bounce effects. If he had Pogo Hopper here...
No, yeah. Game over with the Ziliax as well. Right, I'm going to heal back to full, and my rabbits are large.
I think that's exactly what he would say
yes,
were he
exactly.
to do that.
Word for word.
If there's two things you can say about Glory, he's at full health and he has large rabbits. Unfortunately, while he may dream of such a world, his existence is much more cruel as it currently stands.
Glory doesn't count sheep to go to sleep, he counts rabbits at this point.
So many options.
Just sees Bunny Hopper jumping over a fence. Like, wait, what?
I don't think I would ever sleep again if I saw that. I mean, at this point, it's not how do I win, it's how do I stay alive for Glory, which I guess comes in the form of Ziliax.
The worst part about the wand is that his hand needs to be emptied to play. Which means that like the wand is a great card and potentially what he needs to do to win the game, but he has to spend time emptying his hand, which is time he doesn't really have.
Like I only say this because I have a big amount of respect for Glory as a player. This was one of the worst played games of Grandmasters I think we've seen so far. Like, everything went wrong. He's still got the Edwin in his starting hand, which he could have played right from the start. His hand is way too full. The selections weren't good. He overdrew a bunch of cards. Like, Glory is so much better than this. And I know that.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
even just his score, or the amount of points that he's accrued over the years, I think this doesn't reflect on him as a player, and it does mean that Shaxy takes a win, going up to 9-2, and with Glory at 7-4, he's in a really good spot of getting for top 3 playoffs contention, but it's far from guaranteed.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, honestly, one mistake snowballed for Glory, and it was like, okay, I've done this wrong. What do I do now? Oh, well, me doing this wrong made me do this wrong. And then it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone way more often than it happens to Glory. I think that's quite easily said. Yeah. But Shaxy does take it, and I think Shaxy overall just played very well. Oh, yeah. As in my opinion, he's done for the whole season. He's just played solid, even with some games and some decks that aren't quite as straightforward. Right. He's just solid play. And in a league like Grandmasters, that's what you have to do, and it's why Shaxy's currently at the top.
Yeah, I think his deck selection, I have not agreed with it over the weeks 100%, but the decks he's bringing, he's playing very well. Yeah. Like, I think, you know, he's playing Control Warrior and not Bomb Warrior. He still knew exactly what to do there. You mulligan for the 1-drops, you curve out, you make sure that they struggle to get the value to be able to come back into the game in the first place. And it just meant that, you know, the Rogue died with 10 cards in hand.
Yeah, something's happened, right?
Exactly, something's gone wrong there. And I think for Shaxy, he gave no wiggle room and took a deserving win because of that.
Yep, so as we said, Shaxy is going to continue to dominate his division, and that's only match 2 for today. We've got a few more coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with match number 3.